worked across industries such as hospitality, pharmaceutical industry, and financial services. But as a career changer, she's also passionate about mentorship and leadership initiatives. And so let's give a round of applause for Melissa.
Thank Jose for asking me, and looking in this audience today, I'm a bit emotional. I see a lot of people who've been along this journey to UX design with me, so thank you all for being here today and listening to my take and Billy Bill in the background. Yes, finding humanity and generative AI. Part of what I've done as a UX designer is I've worked primarily in consultancy. And with that means clients, which is a whole thing, which I'll get into later. And just really, what does that mean for design and us as fellow humans in this world? So just to get a litmus test of this room, who here, when ChatGPT dropped in 2022, was freaked out that it was going to replace their jobs? All right, we have a few people in here. Who here was like, I don't want to bother with this, another tool to learn, blah, blah, blah. Who here was like super hyped, like I want to be on the front lines, building out bots and this being my whole vibe? Nice. So I was this second. In my mind as a consultant, I'm balancing learning all of these things, constantly upskilling, working cross-functionally, dealing with, working in Jira, Figma, everything around me. I'm like, I can just Google this stuff. What's ChatGPT? What do you do? Well, apparently my laissez-faire attitude wasn't quite what the market ended up telling me to be. And then I had a moment of pause, and I'm like, what is AI? Why are we here? Why is everybody freaking out over this ChatGPT Google Plus thing? And I realized AI has been part of our culture for over 60 years.
You read me now?
For those of you who are under the age of 30, this is the 2001 Space Odyssey.
Hello, Hal, do you read me?
And this was my first encounter with what AI is.
I read you.
Open the pod bay doors, Hal.
I'm sorry, Dave.
The robots are taking our jobs.
What's the problem?
I think you know what the problem is just as well as I do.
What are you talking about, Hal?
This mission is too important for me to allow you to jeopardize it.
I don't know what you're talking about, Hal.
I know that you and Frank were planning to disconnect me. And I'm afraid that's something I cannot allow to happen.
Yeah, so Stanley Kubrick came out with this movie in the 70s. So joke's on us, the robots have taken over. Everyone here is looking at the phones. Beware of that. And 2001: Space Odyssey wasn't the only one. Blade Runner, Philip K. Dick, Matrix from the early aughts. We had Her, which is literally a device in your brain having a relationship with a robot lady. And then everything that came with Iron Man and Marvel. He gets assistance from an AI, not from a human. Nick Fury doesn't tell Tony Stark what to do. His weird little AI king does. So where does that leave us? Again, how did we get here? As you can see from media, it's existed since the 70s, but historically, how did we get here? Capitalism is a bad word that when we go to our voting booths, we have a huge thumbs down about it. But in its purest form, that many of us learned about, and maybe for those who went to school in the US, we learned about this in AP US. We learned about history. And this is a trend that has allowed us to really excel and really drive the technology market. And again, what does this have to do with design? Well, part of capitalism is automation, development, the scary other stakeholders we interact with every day, making things more agile, yikes. And again, what does this have to do with generative AI? ChatGPT wasn't the first AI. For those history nerds out there, we've had people battling robot chess makers back when the Cold War was a thing. And even before that, in the 1960s, the first computer programs were very small AIs. Adam Smith recently had the 300th anniversary of him. The printing press pre-existed by a couple hundred years. But for the sake of the timeline I created, I just wanted to kind of touch on the points of how automation has really influenced our culture, beginning with the printing press. We had the Industrial Revolution where all of us, learned about the invention of the, how we expedited the car making process, which then influenced computers, which streamlined how we inputted and outputted data. And then for those maybe in this room, some of us have even experienced the invention of the internet. And machine learning is kind of like a hidden gem of AI that many of us didn't even know about. For those of you who maybe do not know what machine learning is, anytime you look at Amazon and you buy a book and you think, why the heck is this book suggesting something that's just like this other book that I just bought? And then what else is it listening to? Are the robots listening? Siri, are you listening? I was hoping to get a reaction from people's devices. And then finally, with the watershed moment of ChatGPT that came out in 2022, didn't just give us tech nerds access to what capitalism and technology and automation was, it gives all those normies out there who don't constantly think about what they're working on in an agile workflow. This is a very dense quote, but this is basically Adam Smith saying, yeah, of course we're doing this now. Automation is just us moving from point A to point B faster and faster and faster. Like Jose mentioned, I'm a career changer. I used to work in news and political science, if that isn't clear by now. And for those who also were in the American school system, you may have watched this in class once or twice. This is kind of just a fun Charlie Chaplin of what automation is and perhaps even barrels of it. And that is what happening when you spend 2 hours in a product meeting. So yeah, generative AI is the future, and capitalism is working, despite it being a dirty word. We know now it is more effective. The amount of information we're getting is astronomical. We can solve problems. I personally have used it to assist me with making project plans or creating widgets that have really helped streamline the ask into the answer. We know it's profitable, it's coming, there are jobs in it. I'm sure there's people in this room who have used AI, and there's many, many startups right now. And it is the next step of technology, so we better get on board. How can we leverage our humanity? And this ties really well in with the first presentation when it comes to ethics. Why do we need humanity in the era of generative AI? When capitalism fails, we all fail. Not just in the voting booth, but also in our day-to-day work. Plagiarism. For those of you who are blissfully unaware, the ChatGPT bots that we all loved in 2022 illegally took great works from J.K. Rowling, from Stephen King, from borderline works like John Grisham, and gave none of them credit. That's how they were teaching it. And on top of that, on the flip side, we now are hearing about classrooms and even workplaces using this to really output, assignments and things like that. And then the ironies of ironies, who saw that coming, especially after my last section, Google laid off a ton of employees. The very employees who created the AI that Google is now using, they laid off those people because they replaced the jobs. And then again, tying back to the first presentation, data security is something we have to constantly think about. And do we trust our data with these robots, with these bots, with ChatGPT, with these LLMs, with these more complex ones? That's something we have to think about as we move forward. I've been calling out OpenAI a lot in this presentation because they need to be called out. For those of you who maybe were blissfully unaware, they've done a lot of sketchy things over the past year and a half, and we can talk later and I'll give you the links to those articles, but essentially, OpenAI has very much decided to throw ethics out the window, and it's important to not copy what they did in our own organizations. So how do we do that? We need to be empathetic. It's here, but we as humans also need to treat it like it's like anything else. In design, we talk about iteration. We talk about not getting things right on the first time. Is this prompt you put into an LLM right on the first try? Maybe not. But innovation does not always equal improvement. As we also speak to clients and more senior leadership, is what we're suggesting to them the right solution, or is it just the fancy object in front of us? Do a gut check. Ethics is all about, how does this make me feel? Do I feel good that I'm using this thing that Stephen King is not okay with, even though his information is being fed into it? Even though the stakeholders want the shiniest thing on the market? And how is it using their data? Is it going to be safe? If you're working in the medical field, is it safe? What about the patients? Thinking about all these things that make us human in this room is what is important as we move in. And do your best to embrace it. Where do we fit in? There's some people in here who were super excited, raised their hands when I asked, who just jumped on this bandwagon right away. You can be the one building bots, but it's also your responsibility to actually learn how to use these tools so that you are the ethical drive behind generative AI. What not to do. AI, even though they replace some of those people at Google's, it's not going to replace humanity in everything we do. Everyone in this room has spoken to a PM, to a stakeholder that does not get design, does not understand why they're spending tons of money on stuff they're not seeing an instant ROI on. But that doesn't mean AI is going to be replacing us. It's our job to really teach them what we need to do in order to really make the best user and customer experience. And again, be wary of the data you're inputting. For those user researchers in here, that data is not yours, it is your company's. So putting in a research report, expecting a user persona to be churned out, may not be under your company's ethical standards. So be wary of these things as you use this work. And again, all of this is overwhelming. Like I mentioned earlier in my speech, we're already learning every tool, every methodology, working cross-functionally. And now we have to learn what the heck an LLM is. Just, again, find your place in this new world moving forward and be excited about it. Embrace it. Embrace the ambiguity. And going along with the capitalism trend, this is my favorite Walt Disney quote that I love, which is around here, however, we don't look backwards very long. We keep moving forward, opening up new doors and doing new things. And curiosity keeps us leading down new paths. So again, stay curious, friends. And I wanted to kind of give a shout out to these two people in the AI space who I know very well, and they are doing very practical knowledge things. And I gave them both a heads up. I'm like, hey, can I name drop you so people can maybe contact you if they're interested on LinkedIn? And they were down with that. So I would recommend contacting these two lovely ladies. And yeah, hit me up. Yeah, I'm on Instagram. I'm skiing tomorrow, so the next few days you'll be seeing lots of photos of me in Colorado. But add me on LinkedIn and shoot me an email. I'm around. Thank you.
Let's give it one more time up for Melissa.